The past few drafts we've had, not going to lie, I have not liked the way that our teams have turned out, but Underdog is going to be launching a $1 million draft contest this weekend. I'll be in Arizona for it, so I need to continue to practice. So we're just going to fire up another quick $3 draft here. Thank you, of course, for everybody hopping in here. We have a lot of the regulars before this starts, which should be about 10 seconds. Make sure you drop a like on the video, and if you want to check out any of these Super Bowl player props, my favorite is going to be the Jalen Hurts more than less than half a total yard. You can find the link to Underdog Fantasy in the live chat in the description in the comment section. Of course, Underdog's where we are drafting this team as well. It's best ball. I drafted over 700 teams on Underdog this past year. I really just want to show y'all that you have that free bet. Even if you signed up for Underdog with promo code FLOCK a year ago, you're going to have this free Jalen Hurts bet for the Super Bowl. So please make sure you're taking advantage of that. And of course, when you sign up with promo code FLOCK, they're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to 200, and you'll get our 2023 Dynasty rankings. But that should be about it. Looks like Max is on the clock where he goes CMC at pick 1. So not too surprising. I mean, I feel like at 5, we are boxed out a bit here. We have Jefferson, Chase, Kupp going. That's exactly what I thought was going to happen. We're going to go ahead. We are going to take Tyreek Hill. We had a comment on yesterday's video saying our take on Travis Kelce wasn't necessarily fair, where we were saying, yeah, Kelce may have been an optimal pick here in the middle of the first round last year, the year before. And 2 years ago, actually, Travis Kelce was one of my most drafted players, at least in round 1, because I was taking him incredibly early, given how nasty the rest of the position is. They said our analysis was unfair, that we were saying he's going to be 34 years old this next season because people have been talking about his age for God knows how long. And yes, he's been able to continue to dominate at 32, at 33, etc. But still, 34 is 34. Just because he dominated at 32, 33 doesn't mean like age is no longer a concern, period. He's very, very old, ladies and gentlemen. Not saying you shouldn't take him in round 1, but if we have the opportunity to go through and take a Tyreek Hill level player, we will take Tyreek Hill instead. Jayan said he got a shield. Happy for you, my dude. And Zach here, pick 10. I believe he was at 8 in the draft last night, maybe 9, 10, 8, around this range. Ended up going Garrett Wilson. This time he decides to take Amon-Ra St. Brown. Seems more reasonable than Garrett Wilson. I'll say that. But Jonathan Taylor going at 11. So you only have 2 running backs in the entire first round here. Obviously on Underdog, you're going to see these wide receivers go off the board a little bit earlier. And last night, we tried a draft strategy where we just ended up taking wide receiver after wide receiver after wide receiver after wide receiver. Did not work out. I feel like we were underweight at running back. Obviously, we were laughably bad at tight end. So we are going to try to have a little bit more of a balanced approach in this draft. Jayan decides to actually go with the combo of JT as well as Saquon Barkley through the first 2. Zach goes Garrett Wilson, which is funny. This is the exact same start he had in the last draft, but the last one he went Wilson, then St. Brown. This one just St. Brown, then Wilson. Williams says, I've taken Andrews in every draft so far except once. Is Andrews, I believe, going at the beginning of the 3rd, right? I think so. Now, Derrick Henry goes 17. Now, let's swing this back around here. What are we going to do? Are we going to take an elite level quarterback? I think we're probably going to go ahead and take Jalen Waddle. I mean, we are going in on this Miami Dolphins offense, obviously. At this point, we're going to be looking to see if we can come away with someone like Tua later on, maybe in about the 7th round, as we are all in on this team. I like Waddle. Y'all know we were taking him consistently at the 3-4 turn. He was actually my most drafted wide receiver last season. Here in the 2nd round, it's obviously much more difficult, but I want to feel comfortable with our wide receiver room through the first 2 rounds here. Higgins 23 with T. Higgins. If we were to get the guarantee that he will be in Cincinnati this next season, I think you can make a strong argument that Higgins should be a player you're taking over Jalen Waddle. The issue, of course, comes if he were to get traded. Seems like every landing spot we talked about being a possibility last night seemed like it would have been a worse situation than what you currently have with Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. So it's like an interesting spot to be taking a player like T. Higgins where there is some uncertainty. Jaden says, can't wait until they add Bijan Robinson. Where do you think he's going to go in underdog drafts? So they should add him this weekend in that $1 million draft contest underdog is going to have. So I'm very interested to see where he ends up. I would say he's probably going to be, I mean, if we compare him to some of these other running backs, he's not going to be able to go ahead of Eckler, not ahead of Barkley. He's probably going to be between like the Kenneth Walker and Josh Jacobs pick. So I'd say he's probably going to be in the middle of the second round. I think Bijan Robinson is going to be a mid-second round pick. We're going to go DK Metcalf. With Metcalf here, we're just going to continue to build out this wide receiver core in a league like this where we have to start 3 guys each and every week. I think where we made the mistake in the draft last night is we went a little overboard in round 6, round 7. There we continued to go through it and take additional wide receivers, whereas that was the range where we should have been pivoting over to the running back position. So Metcalf, completely fine taking him here at pick 29. I understand that quarterback situation isn't set, but hell, the scheme in that offense is just so damn good where I think we can safely assume that there will be production to go around. They maybe can upgrade from Geno Smith in the NFL draft. We don't know for sure yet. We are just going to have to continue to monitor the situation, of course, but it is what it is. Metcalf should continue to take targets away from Tyler Lockett as Lockett gets older and older. Okay. Now, Zach says, I got a Monroe St. Brandon Wilson last night too. LOL, just swap place. 100%. We said that earlier on in the live stream, my friend. I definitely did notice that. Deezenators decides to go with the bully tight end strategy. He goes Kelsey and Andrews in the first and third round. Very interesting here. Very interesting. And can y'all please let me know in the live chat? Actually, 2 things. If you're watching this right now and you have not dropped a like on this live stream, fix your life, drop a like on the stream. And also in the live chat, help answer Jayen's question. My answer was in the middle of the second round, like pick probably 19, 18. But where do you think Bijan Robinson's going to be going in underdog drafts this weekend when they add the rookies in? Where do you think he ends up? Do you think he is going later than the middle of the second round? Do you think he's going to be going earlier? Deezenator says, not sure I would do that in a tournament, but here, why not? Yeah, you can play around with it. It is that $3 draft, so you can just practice and have some fun. Jayen says, it's this weekend? Yes, I believe it's this weekend. Let me pull up Underdog's Twitter real quick. I should have quote tweeted the announcement. February 10th. $1 million in prizes. So $1 million prize pool, February 10th. Today is Wednesday, I believe. So Thursday's the 9th. Friday's the 10th. So yeah, it should be good to go Friday. Based on what Underdog's telling us, and I will be, like I said, with them in Arizona for the Super Bowl, I will be drafting, I think, in the first one of those drafts. So it will be exciting. Okay. Rowan says, how long does it take for the public ones to fill? Once that $1 million draft tournament is launched, I will tell you it's probably going to take you about 30 seconds for those draft rooms to fill. If y'all don't know, Underdog is God knows how many people playing on it. I want to say it's probably the most popular fantasy football draft platform on the planet. At least, of course, I don't know for sure, but based on my experience. So those rooms fill. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. Taylor says he thinks Bijan Robinson's going to be going in the early second. Dawson says he'll be going later than the middle of the second. Snake says early second as well. So maybe we hit the nail on the head. And maybe mid-second is correct if we have some people saying early second, some people saying late second. Okay, so let's see what we should do with this selection. Let's see what this team does. Goes Mike Williams. We'll take DeAndre Swift. Here, let's pivot over. We'll grab a running back. I don't necessarily know exactly how this is going to work out. Like we discussed earlier on, the live stream we did last night wasn't great in terms of just, I think we got a little too cute with waiting for running backs. But if we're going to be looking at what we have in this range, Javonte Williams will probably not be my guy, specifically because this is a league where you don't have the fantasy football playoffs. You don't have the fantasy football playoff tournaments. Rather than we are going to be looking at the accumulation of points through weeks 1 through 17. So if Javonte Williams misses the beginning of the season with the torn up knee, that's going to impact this league a ton. So players like that could miss time this next season, Javonte Williams, Alvin Kamara possibly with the suspension. Obviously, Kyler Murray at the quarterback spot is going to be a little tough. Robin says, will the underdog contest have the tournament format? Yeah, the one that's launching this weekend will be that $1 million tournament. William says, why would the guy take Herbert? Yeah, so, I mean, if you're looking at what Joey decided to do here, obviously you would never do this in a regular fantasy football league. But with this being best ball, so you don't submit your starting lineup, it's automatically submitted at the end of every week for you. There is merit in taking 2 elite level quarterbacks. It's a strategy that I implemented in almost every single one of my drafts this past year, or at least I tried to. But the cost we are getting those guys at was significantly cheaper. My most drafted quarterback this past year, actually a top 3 player for me in my most drafted players overall, was Patrick Mahomes, but we are getting him in the 5th round. So last year, I was liking the strategy of going through and taking like a Patrick Mahomes in the 5th and then grabbing another elite level quarterback in like the 7th through 9th. So I don't mind taking 2 elite level quarterbacks. I think in previous years, it was actually the optimal strategy. Here, if you're going 3rd and 4th, though, I agree. It does seem a little rich. Okay. But I think we're actually going to pivot back over to wide receiver. I think we're going to get a teardrop by the time we're back up on the board in the 6th round. We'll go ahead. We'll take DJ Moore. I think DJ Moore is a better player than Michael Pittman. We actually went out on a limb and said Matt Ryan was going to be a bum this past year. Everybody was dramatically overrating Michael Pittman. So we ranked DJ Moore ahead of Michael Pittman, and we were one of the only people to do that. And I want to say, oh, we were right. Matt Ryan was a bum. Michael Pittman was very bad. DJ Moore was very bad as well. So it's not like we were right at all. But, I mean, I still like the talent of DJ Moore. So we'll go ahead. We'll take him here at pick 53. We are going to have to revisit our rankings a ton with that tier of wide receivers. Guys like DJ Moore, guys like Michael Pittman. I mean, I'm thinking right now that both teams should have the ability to address the quarterback position in the NFL draft. I don't know which one decides to do so. Obviously, if we take DJ Moore here and you end up getting Quentin Johnston going to the Carolina Panthers at pick 9, that would just be devastating. Okay. Rowan says, Bijan is a late first rounder in every redraft / best ball, in my opinion. I would agree once we see the landing spot. If we get the landing spot and he is confirmed first round NFL draft capital, goes to a depth chart where he has no competition whatsoever, and it's going to be a respectable offense, I could say, yes, he's going to be a first round pick in every redraft league. Before the NFL draft happens, I think people are probably going to be putting a slight discount on him, not really knowing for sure what we should expect. So I don't know. Rowan says Chiefs or Bucks off the top of my head would be for Bijan Robinson would be the best. I'll say I don't think the Chiefs are going to be super excited to jump back into the first round running back draft market. I don't think they're going to be doing that after what happened with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. If we are going to be looking at the Bucks, I know a lot of people are mock drafting Bijan Robinson to go to Tampa. It's a little tough in that while I know it seems like Leonard Fournette for sure is going to get cut, they would only save, I believe, about $3 million from moving on from Leonard Fournette. Not only would they save about only $3 million, but at the same time, it's a team that's not going to be competitive anytime soon. To go along with this, Rachaad White can catch the ball out of the backfield. So I don't know. It just obviously it's always tough to find an ideal landing spot for a round one running back like that. Let me pull up Tankathon real quick. Just look at this draft order and see if we can find a spot that makes a lot of sense. So, I mean, if Philadelphia falls in love and they don't think they can end up getting him at pick 32, you could see him going at pick 10 to Philly. I would say maybe 12 to Houston if all of a sudden the Houston Texans just say, okay, well, we're going to address our quarterback spot, pick 2. Let's go running back 12. Obviously, there's a lot of crossover between Houston Texans fans and Texas Longhorn fans. Maybe they do it from a branding perspective. I don't know. I'm grasping for straws here. Okay, do we just take... Give me 1 second. Actually going to go ahead and take Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara has a guaranteed contract this next year. Obviously, Kamara is going to regress significantly. It was not nearly as good this season as what we've historically seen from Alvin Kamara. But at the same time, we've historically seen Alvin Kamara consistently be a first-round pick. Here we're getting him in round 6. And this is without rookies. So once you add the rookies in here, he'll probably be closer to a 7th rounder. So we're getting him at a significant discount. There are definite concerns, but I think those concerns are baked into his price. But looking at this, trying to figure out a landing spot. Baltimore maybe could be sneaky at 23. Obviously, we like Dobbins, but it is what it is. They may not. I just don't know. Can y'all spam the chat? Where do you think Bijan Robinson is going to be landing? What team do you think makes sense to be taking him? I'm going to assume that it has to be in the first round. Gabriel says Bengals. The thing with the Bengals is, I don't know. It seems like a luxury pick if you're about to pay Burrow, pay Chase, and either trade or pay Higgins. To then go spend your first-round pick on a running back. Paperboy says Lions. I mean, obviously, I would hate that for DeAndre Swift, but I think it's probably in the range of outcomes. Like, I don't hate the call. We're going to go ahead, throw our hands up in the air, and take Miles Sanders. I mean, I don't know where Miles Sanders ends up. Miles Sanders is an unrestricted free agent, was drafted in 2019. So he's going to be a free agent this offseason. Probably pick 77 isn't the best. Maybe we should have gone Jahan Dotson instead. Milo says some mocks had Bijan Robinson going to the Cowboys. I mean, I could kind of see that if you are just throwing in the towel saying they are not going to re-sign Tony Pollard. They're going to be able to cut Zeke next offseason. And they want it. I mean, if you're Jerry Jones and you want to sell jerseys, you'd be able to sell a ton. A ton. Okay, so after we take Sanders, you do have Dotson going immediately after. Like we said, if we were to go somewhere else, Dotson probably would have been the pick. Milo says teams aren't going to invest an early first-round pick on a running back in today's NFL. Yeah, I think Saquon Barkley is probably the last guy we see going off the board within the first 5-6 picks of the NFL draft. I mean, if a team were to fall in love with Bijan Robinson, I could see him going around like 9, 10, 11, 12, but be very surprised if we ever see a running back going that early again. Okay, so now Akers goes 83, Bateman 82. The Hot says, hit that like button, y'all. Yes, if you have not done so already, please go down there and drop a like in the live stream. I do really appreciate it. Mark says, what is your strategy for best ball? Do you concentrate on certain players and make them your core, then draft around them depending on your pick number? Thanks for the help. No, thank you so much. I would say the number one strategy with best ball, and I think this is how we had a ton of success. We won $150,000 this past year, is staying extremely flexible, knowing that there are multiple ways that you can quote unquote win a draft. You can't go into every single draft with the same strategy, because if you go into a draft with a strategy that's set in stone, then you're probably not going to be able to take advantage of values where they may fall. So I would say you need to have a fundamental understanding of roster construction, where you need to understand that you can only draft 2 to 3 quarterbacks, 2 to 3 tight ends, 4 to 6 running backs, and then the rest of your roster should be made up of the wide receiver position. And of course, you should be playing around with those number of roster spots you're spending on each position based on where you select them. So in this draft, we did not take any respectable tight ends, right? So we know we're going to be taking 3 tight ends here. Same thing, we didn't take any respectable quarterbacks. So from that scale of 2 to 3, we will be taking 3 quarterbacks. We're going to be looking for correlation where we can find it. But I'd say the number one most important thing is going to be staying flexible, and don't go into a draft thinking my strategy is the best. I know 100% more than everybody else, and this is the only thing you can do. Okay. Now we got AJ Dillon, Brian Robinson, Rachaad White, Isaiah Pacheco, all going off the board here. So honestly, pretty happy with our decision to take a running back in the last round. I don't necessarily know if we took the right one, but probably was the right decision. So I think y'all know where we're going. We took Tyreek and Jalen Waddle early on. So, I mean, I think it's just an auto pick for us to go through and take Tua here. Even if we were to rank Kirk Cousins over Tua Tagovailoa, really the only way that this team can win the league is if Tua stays healthy, if the Miami Dolphins are a top 5-ish passing offense in the NFL when we take Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle in the first 2 rounds. So we really had to get Tua in this draft, because the only way this team's good in the first place is if Tua is an extremely good quarterback. Okay, so now we have David Njoku, Khalil Herbert, Kirk Cousins, all going off the board at the end of the 8th. The thing is, I feel like once we wait this long on quarterback, almost regardless of if we take a quarterback here in the 9th versus if we wait a few more rounds, we are going to have to draft 3 quarterbacks anyway. And same thing at tight end. So it's not like I'm feeling the need to go through and just make sure we get a quarterback here at pick 101. I feel like we're already pot committed into 3 of each position, especially in a private draft here, not a tournament. So I don't think we need to be just jacking these quarterbacks up this draft board. Okay, so Freiermuth going 99. I actually really like that Freiermuth pick in comparison to the price point of where we saw those other tight ends off the board. Okay, so let's see. Never mind. I guess I lied to you. Looking at how the tier break is going to end up being here at the quarterback position, I feel like we kind of have to grab one of these guys now. Whereas on the way back around, we'll be looking at like a Stafford. I do think that there's a fundamental difference between a Kyler Murray and a Matthew Stafford. So let's take Kyler Murray here at 101. Kyler's not a phenomenal pick in that if Kyler misses the beginning portion of this next year, that is going to be very bad for us. Going back to what we were discussing, where you don't have the fantasy football playoffs here. Rather, it is just driven on total points weeks 1 through 17. So not great with Kyler Murray, most likely missing the beginning portion of the season. Obviously, Kyler was going in the 5th round a year ago. So we are getting a discount based off the injury, especially considering the fact that the rookies aren't loaded in. If the rookies were loaded in here, this would be equivalent to about a 10th round pick. So fine with it for now. Rowan says, I think there are going to be a lot of Chase Burrow stacks based off their ADP. I will say, don't fall in love with ADP as it stands right now. ADP will dramatically change throughout the entire offseason, like literally through the course of the summer when literally nothing changes. Like pretty much all the rosters are the same. We get no real news. ADPs wildly change. So to look at them now before we have free agency, before we have the NFL Combine, before we have the NFL Draft, Like, draft boards are going to look so different by the time that we are in July, August, that it'll be funny to come back and look at how bad we were messing up these drafts. And by we, I'm putting myself in there. That's why I'm only doing $3 drafts now, trying to get in as much practice as I can and try to find the optimal for whenever we are approaching the heavy portion of the draft season. We'll be hopping in those high stakes ones. Okay, so Boyd, Darnell Mooney go off the board here at the end of the 9th. I feel like we have a very balanced team. I mean, obviously we've punted tight end, but at this point, like, I'm just prepared to punt tight end in almost every draft, at least until the rookies are added in. Once the rookies are added in, maybe we can reevaluate. So at wide receiver, we have Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, DK Metcalf, DJ Moore. Running back, we have DeAndre Swift, Alvin Kamara, Miles Sanders. And then at quarterback, we have Tua to stack up with both Waddle and Tyreek. And we have Kyler Murray as well. Okay. Swing this down. Stafford going. So, yeah, definitely now that Stafford's off the board, I feel like that Kyler Murray selection was correct, even if he will miss the beginning portion of the season. Probably had to go ahead and take a quarterback there. Okay. So, you have Jamal Williams, David Montgomery, both as free agents. Ezekiel Elliott is a running back that you have just no idea what's going to be happening. I mean, let's pull up these contracts here. Geno Smith off the board. So, yep, no contract for Jamal, David Montgomery, or Kareem Hunt. Ezekiel Elliott's the only player with a contract in this range. And that contract pretty much guarantees that he will be with the Dallas Cowboys. They could save about $4 million for moving on from him, like 4.8. Maybe you make the argument it's worth it based off of how bad Ezekiel Elliott's looked. I would say just from a branding perspective, probably not. Zeke goes, I don't know. Just like Miles Sanders, I'll throw my hand up in the air and just say, I don't know what to do. I mean, we're looking at David Montgomery versus Elijah Moore. It's not like Montgomery's some phenomenal talent. He's not guaranteed a starting job next year. But hell, he could find himself in a spot. We don't know. Nathan says, good to see you, Mason. Hope time off has been nice. Time off means I'm posting every single day on the Dynasty Flock YouTube channel, my friends. But time off from live streaming 4 or 5 hours every night has been a little nice. But thank you so much for coming out. Happy to see you, my man. Okay. Now, Kareem Hunt, Wan'Dale Robinson, Cole Kmet. Jayan saying that Bijan Robinson's destined to be a top 15 pick and that the NFL still values running backs that way. And we just haven't seen a running back prospect that was deserving of it since Saquon Barkley. My friend, I will guarantee you, I mean, we talked about this all last offseason with how damn good Breece Hall was as a prospect. If Breece Hall was drafted 10 years ago, Breece Hall would have been a borderline top 10 NFL draft pick. Like Breece Hall falling to the second round, Jonathan Taylor falling to the second round shows what the NFL thinks of those running back prospects. Not saying Bijan Robinson's going to fall to the second round. Not saying that at all. Okay. We're going to take a third quarterback. Maybe in a tournament style draft, this probably wouldn't be something we decided to do, but specifically in a private draft where we're not necessarily just trying to optimize our weekly ceiling to the highest degree. I think that in a private best ball draft, it makes sense to go ahead and grab Aaron Rodgers here, just knowing the amount of points that Rodgers will put up, especially if we assume that Kyler Murray may miss the beginning portion of the season. Max says, do you think Elijah Mitchell is a good pick if you have Christian McCaffrey? I mean, I'm never one to go out of our way to handcuff running backs, to be honest. Like, the thing is, if you draft CMC round 1, right, we have to have an understanding that out of the 12 people in this draft, only one person is going to win. Right? Out of the 12 drafters here, only one person will win. If you take Christian McCaffrey, then he gets injured. How likely are you to be that one person who wins, regardless of if you took Elijah Mitchell or not? You're almost already out of it. So I'm not saying Elijah Mitchell's a bad pick, but I'm saying, hell, maybe you want Elijah Mitchell on a team that you took Jonathan Taylor on early on, because if you have Jonathan Taylor and then CMC goes down, you have Elijah Mitchell, you may be in a situation where you are just printing money. You may just be printing money. Okay, so Alexander Madison, Gibson, Gainwell, Fournette, all going off the board. So obviously, once we take Rodgers here at 125, we are really hoping that we have some more quarterbacks off the board, because we are now done drafting quarterbacks. I don't think we can take another one of these guys. I mean, I know for a damn fact we can't take another quarterback. Milo says, where do you think Derek Carr lands next year, Mason? First off, I want to be on record saying Derek Carr is not that good of a quarterback. I don't think it is going to swing things too much one way or another. I think some potential landing spots for Derek Carr could be obviously the Jets, where everybody's pointing. I think Tampa makes sense, and I think the New Orleans Saints make sense. Can you all spam the chat? Where do you think Derek Carr ends up this next season? I do want to be on record saying I don't think Carr is that great of a player. I'm surprised Jayan did not take him when he had 0 QB. Like Jayan, I will say for a damn fact, like obviously I'm wrong with a lot of things, but to take Michael Thomas, Hunter Renfrow, and Nico Collins before a quarterback and not knowing if your first QB off the board is going to be Jimmy Garoppolo, it's probably a pretty bad thing. Okay, so Dave, let's see what he does. I think we need to pivot back over to wide receiver at some point here, but we are going to have to hide the quarterbacks. Like I said, we already have 3 guys, so we can't take a 4th. Milo says Jets or Bucks makes more sense if those teams want to stay competitive. Fantasy says Jets. When I say Derek Carr is a bad quarterback, he would be an upgrade over Zach Wilson for sure. Okay. Alan Lazard off. I think we're going to go ahead. We are going to take Alec Pierce. I mean, if we're looking at Alec Pierce, I don't think he's some phenomenal talent. I didn't really like him coming out of Cincinnati last year, but he did flash as a rookie, was selected in the 2nd round, so has NFL draft capital. So most likely he's going to have a starting job next year. We're getting him at a reasonable price point. We're just looking for a few spike weeks from players in this range. So we'll go ahead. We'll take Alec Pierce here. Okay, so Tyler Higbee goes 141. Taysom Hill 142. Josh says he thinks that Carr's going to land with the Steelers. I don't want to say it's a 0% chance the Steelers would bring in a quarterback to play over Kenny Pickett. I think it's close to 0%. I don't think they would do that. I mean, if somehow they had the ability to bring in like Rodgers, I think that they would tell Kenny Pickett, "Hey man, you're gonna have to sit on the back seat for a year. We're gonna put you on the back burner." I don't know if they'd do it for Carr. Okay, so we have some tight ends going off the board here at the end of the 12th. Honestly, I don't care. I think the tight ends off in this range are very equivalent to the guys that we're going to be looking at the end of the draft. So I'm just fine taking the tight ends at the very end. Okay, so let's move this over. Penny goes 145. I have my eyes on 2 players here. MVS goes. Joey only has 2 running backs. His 2 running backs are Nick Chubb, Khalil Herbert. So I'm not going to be surprised at all if he decides to go RB here. He has Mahomes, Herbert, so I'd be very surprised if he went quarterback. He goes Mostert. Jacob goes Hodgins. We're going to take Chase Claypool. I mean, with Chase Claypool, I don't think he's great, but I think the Chicago Bears just traded the 32nd overall pick to get him. So, with that being said, he's going to have a role. Like, there's no way in hell that they could trade the 32nd overall pick and go, yeah, Chase Claypool, you're too bad. You're going to have to ride the pine. Now, obviously, it's a horrendous passing offense. We've been on record saying that over and over and over again. But, I mean, when you have a role in this range, you're not going to be someone that I'm just straight up ignoring. Okay, Gerald Everett goes. Jordan Love. So let's see what Jay, and I guess he gets Mac Jones, right? Yeah, he gets Mac Jones. Honestly, I feel like got a little lucky there to get Mac Jones. Chark goes, okay, Chark would have been a wide receiver we were taking if we decided not to go with Chase Claypool. With Chark, I think he's actually probably a much better wide receiver than Claypool. He is a free agent. Hard to know where he's going to end up. So, I don't know. It's an interesting spot to be in. Milo says, if Lamar decides he doesn't want to stay in Baltimore, I think the Jets should trade the sun and the moon for him. The thing with a trade for Lamar is very similar to a trade that we just saw for Watson. It's not only the cost that you're paying to acquire him in terms of draft picks, same thing with Russell Wilson, of course, but it's also then the cost to kind of sell out your franchise and give him all the money in the world. So as a general rule of thumb, I don't really love the idea of teams going through and trading away multiple future first-round picks and then giving as much guaranteed money as Lamar Jackson wants. Lamar Jackson wants Deshaun Watson guaranteed money. Seems very tough. The Rams made it work by trading for Matthew Stafford, but at the same time, if you look at the Matthew Stafford contract, it's not like he was getting paid anything close to what Lamar Jackson wants. We're going to have a massive reach here. I mean, I know I sound like a broken drum, but we're just kind of taking players that we know that are going to have a safe role next year. Allen Robinson, this player we were screaming was massively overvalued a year ago. Not a good player, but a player that just got all the money in the world to go to the Los Angeles Rams and most likely will be on the field next season. And it's hard to guarantee that any of the players in this range will be on the field, so we're just going to take him here and move on. But realistically speaking, if you were the Jets, would you be excited to pay, say, 2 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks to get Lamar Jackson and then give Lamar Jackson Deshaun Watson guaranteed money? Like, maybe that's, I mean, Lamar Jackson's this time as well. Let's pull this up. Lamar Jackson, back-to-back seasons now, has missed 5 games. He's never started 16 games in his NFL career. 2019, that may have been with him getting a bye, but still. Deezenator says, only if you can't get Aaron Rodgers. Because the price point with Rodgers from a contract perspective would be similar. Like, if we're going to pull up the Rodgers contract, like in terms of short-term dollars, like you are having a significant amount of dead cap with Rodgers this season at 100, but then that falls off a cliff to $24 million next year. And then the year after, $16 million guaranteed. So like if you're the Jets and you trade, say, a single pick to go get Rodgers and pay him a ton of money this season, it's not like you're pot committed through your franchises next 5 years. Let's go take Samaje Perine. I mean, expanded his role as the offseason progressed. I don't want to act like, oh, yeah, Joe Mixon's not going to be with the team next year. I know a lot of people think Samaje Perine's a guy. I think it's worth a shot in the dark in the 15th round. And we're just going to go through, queue up a ton of tight ends. We're going to take 3 tight ends in the final 3 rounds, just like we did in the draft last night. I actually kind of like doing this right now. But let me show up the entire draft board. I like this draft. I think it's going to be my favorite draft that we've had between the 3. I will say this is, of course, a private draft. In a tournament draft, we wouldn't have taken Rodgers here. But I like it. We're going to continue to practice. We will be ready, good to go when Underdog launches the $1 million draft tournament on Friday. And, of course, if you want to get in a draft with us, if you want to get in one of these drafts, sign up to Underdog, link in the live chat. Also, where you have this free Jalen Hurts player prop and all these player props. They'll match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $200 when you use promo code FLOCK. But I think that is going to be about it. I really appreciate all of you. Really do hope that you have a great day, a great week. And I will have a video dropping for y'all tomorrow.